For weeks, we watched this MiG-29 hunt Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea, flying low out of Kacha Airfield in Crimea, hunting slow reconnaissance drones and vectoring local air defense batteries onto their targets. Tonight, that jet sat cold inside its concrete shelter. Its pilot slept nearby, expecting nothing more than a routine scramble. He expected a normal dawn scramble, but he was never going to wake up, because 398 kilometers away, a precision weapon was already airborne to permanently ground that jet. It was designed so quiet that sentries standing 500 meters from the launch rail would hear only the wind. The Russian command had no idea. At 7:15, a pneumatic catapult launched a UJ-26 Beaver drone off its rail, west of Kherson. Its pusher propeller bit the air instantly, and the platform climbed to roughly 60 meters, leveled off, and entered cruise. Small, light, and highly covert. 3 Ukrainian special operators had under 2 minutes to displace. They packed the launcher in 12 seconds, threw thermal blankets into the truck, and exfiltrated down a dirt track running along an irrigation canal. Meanwhile, the Beaver was already 2 kilometers downrange, heading toward its cruising altitude. Kacha lay 398 kilometers southeast. Now here is the grim reality of deep strike operations. You see, the hardware is expendable. The crew is not. The adversary initiated their hunt before the Beaver even reached cruise altitude. 14 miles east, a pole 21 tower logged a signal spike when the drone powered up. This system floods corridors with receivers designed to detect satellite navigation emissions. The Beaver's encrypted GPS handshake, a microsecond frequency was enough to trigger their sensors. A watch officer with Russia's dedicated drone hunting cell Rubicon flagged the anomaly, instantly warning of an active long-range launch. Origin sector Kherson. Within minutes, a Russian Orlan-30 surveillance platform launched near the suspected coordinates. Its thermal sensors scanning for the one signature, the Beaver, was engineered to mask the massive heat signature of a vehicle escaping the scene. Rubicon's operational calculus is ruthless. Downing a single drone means nothing if another launches tomorrow. But skilled operators, those capable of strict emission control navigation planning and terminal guidance under fire, take months to train. Therefore, their priority is the crew, not the platform. So while the Beaver climbed 400 meters, Rubicon dispatched 2 hunter-killer teams to intercept. These are not commercial quadcopters. They are lethal munitions. Under a kilogram, flying 120 kilometers per hour, carrying charges meant to shred vehicle engines. The tactical advantage here is volume. A single team deploys up to 8 drones to saturate the sector and force mistakes. Enemy doctrine assumes operators will prioritize speed over stealth once launch, speeding down roads to escape. But the Ukrainian crew chose a far smarter tactic. They harbored inside a ruined barn, killed the engine, and threw thermal blankets over the hood. Then they did the hardest thing on a modern battlefield. They remained absolutely motionless, for silence as the surveillance asset hunted overhead. On the Orlan's infrared feed, a trace appeared. Crushed grass and residual tire heat. The hostile controller vectored an asset to investigate. A killer drone swept 400 meters away. The crew held their breath. Meanwhile, the Beaver was 50 kilometers downrange, climbing to its cruise altitude of 800 meters. Then, it executed a maneuver that contradicts standard drone doctrine. It initiated total radio silence. No control link, no telemetry, and 0 electromagnetic emissions. The crew had no way to monitor or correct it. They had to rely entirely on autonomous navigation to guide it to Crimea while they focused on staying alive. At 7:31, the Orlan swept directly over the barn. Its thermal payload registered only ambient ground temperatures. No vehicle, no personnel, no active target. Rubicon logged the search as inconclusive. The Beaver pressed forward. At 7:50 across the Dnieper, River transiting southeast over open steppe with zero terrain masking clear skies and adversary radar coverage extending for hundreds of kilometers. Yet Russian air defenses detected nothing. This is the crucial tactical reality. Platform's composite structure absorbs and scatters radar waves instead of reflecting them back to the source. At low grazing angles, its radar cross-section drops to virtually zero. Even if a radar system could theoretically acquire such a minimal signature, it required flawless geometry. The flight path was calculated to bypass. This is perfect geometry. In my tactical view, mid-course inertial flight relies on gyros tracking every calculating dead reckoning from the launch coordinates. But as officers we know, these systems drift over time without GPS. Yet over long distances, the error remains under a kilometer. That is close enough for a terminal strike correction, where an operator can make final adjustments. But in modern warfare, the enemy they only need 2 fleeting seconds. At 7:56, a Crimean early warning radar detected a brief paint. At 8:04, an S-300 radar caught another 2-second glimpse. Neither yielded a fire solution, but they allowed analysts to map out reverse vector reconstructions. Calculating bearing altitude and time, we can project a cone backward to find the launch point. Once localized scout drones launch, FPV teams intercept bottlenecks. The net begins to close. Yet the target team had already displaced rolling south to reduce thermal signatures and avoid predictable routes. They played the tactical book by the numbers, but the enemy net tightened anyway. Then, at 8:15, the drone flight computer registered a GPS anomaly. Satellite signals flickered, and in our analysis, an erratic error circle like this points to one thing: classic jamming. The enemy electronic warfare units had locked the corridor, pouring noise into key approach routes. They flooded the lone and L2 GPS bands to deny positioning data. But their tactical goal is not a kinetic kill, but forcing operators to break radio silence for corrections. That transmission is the bait. Denied GPS, the drone reverted strictly to inertial guidance. Inertial drift began compounding by the second, a fatal error unless operators could re-establish contact. But as analysts, we recognize the trap. They get exactly one chance to transmit. Because the moment they signal the enemy, passive sensors will pinpoint them. At 9:14, penetration began. Crossing into hostile airspace, 100 kilometers out, the drone activated its optical feed. Finally, the operators we are talking about a highly compressed feed with massive latency, yet usable enough for target acquisition. The target fighter jet sat parked in its hardened shelter, matching our intelligence reports precisely. Visible beyond the blast walls, the operator initiated micro-corrections, fighting the lag of long-distance every command arrived delayed. As the target neared, the enemy passive array picked up the uplink instant. This is the physics of war: directional antennas, leak side lobes, spilling radio frequency signatures everywhere. Along the coast, specialized passive stations are calibrated to exploit exactly this kind of signature. Within 10 seconds, they triangulated the launch coordinates, a targetable grid ready for counter-battery fire. They unleashed a coordinated strike: scout drones, loitering munitions, and rapid artillery requests. The operators were blind to the incoming fire, hyper-focused on correcting the drift of their terminal guidance feed, trying to counter the massive drift accumulated under heavy jamming. At 9:20, the first shell landed. Impact was 2 kilometers off, but the relay signal held, a near miss followed by immediate adjustments. Then, security reported interceptor drones closing fast from the north. On screen, the visual offset was critical. The drone had drifted 340 meters left of the ideal glide path. At this vector, the strike would miss. The pilot needed one final critical correction: a 3-degree heading adjustment requiring less than 2 seconds of transmission. He committed it. The target centered. As the weapon entered its terminal dive, enemy hunter-killer drones struck the relay station. They followed their standard doctrine. They did not assume the relay was unmanned, they hunted the operators. The first kinetic drone hit the antenna housing dead center, detonating and shredding the transmitter. The structural roof collapsed onto the arrays. 2 more strikes followed, ensuring total destruction of the artillery fire continued to saturate the grid, pulverizing the entire command post to dust. The enemy logged a clean kill, transmission silenced, threat neutralized. But that assumption cost them. Because in real warfare, deception wins. The operators were miles away from that transmitter. No antenna, no RF signature. They anticipated that the enemy would strike the active signal. The relay was a deliberate sacrifice. The final correction was uploaded, and the drone flight, the onboard computer kept the corrected heading locked in memory. Direct link was no longer required. At 9:21, the Beaver drone slammed into the MiG-29. Its shaped charge warhead detonated, sending a violent overpressure the airframe's aluminum skin and structural ribs. Vaporized fuel sprayed across the revetment, igniting massive fireball high above the revetment walls. Secondary explosions followed as the fighter's onboard electronics and post-strike analysis revealed only a charred skeleton, melted wiring, warped titanium spars, and a ruined concrete pad. The jet had stood ready to scramble. Far off in the Kherson countryside, 3 Ukrainian operators remained completely because the very signal Rubicon's electronic hunters targeted the transmission link was merely decoy bait. One drone reaching a parked jet. It was the human duel behind the machine. The hunt for the operator to force a fatal error, the race between autonomous terminal guidance and rapid direction finding. Rubicon executed correctly. They detected the launch signature, tracked the cruise, triangulated the uplink, and neutralized the relay station immediately. But the final 90 seconds transcended situational awareness. It came down to who could transmit one last correction. Signal went completely dark. Out.